Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thanks for joining me in another of my little monologues. Now, as you know, I'm desperately trying to move away from some of the older stuff that I've been talking about because there's an archive of all of that. And in the end, you just find yourself repeating yourself and talking about the same old thing in a different variation. And that might be the case in today's show. I really want to concentrate more on the land stuff because that's where Julia and I are finding our joy and how we are thriving. That is life, as they say. The cheeky girl said, touch my bum, this is life. Going on the land, that is life. Anyway, before I start with what I want to talk about, a couple of things I'd like to promote to help out some of those that would like to attend some events. So number one is this one. And this is being run by Maureen Fearon. It's free. And you can find out more information at maureenfearon.co.uk. It's all online, and it is a Skills Not Thrills Masterclass. 7 mini events for self-management and inner resilience, if you need any of that. And it's got things like NBIR, whatever that is, therapy method, sleep strategies, EFT, that's the tapping thing for pain relief, relaxing sound bath, laughter yoga, breath work, and NLP, coach your mind. And they're going on, I think some of them are already started, but there's still plenty to go through early March. So do check them out at maureenfearon.co.uk, and you'll see the information on the screen. The second one that I'd like to just point out is Checkmate the Matrix, and it's a number of things going on. Great speakers, including the lovely Victoria Rickson from Midwife to Healer. And this is up in Newcastle from the 2nd, 3rd and 4th of May. You may want to attend that if you're in that neck of the woods, with lots of talks about blockchain, banks, de-Googled phones, crypto and DeFi, whatever that is, and alternative health and grow your own food. Lots of speakers there. Do check it out. It's in May, so plenty of time to get your tickets. So there we are, a couple of events for the diary if you're interested. So let's get on to what I really want to talk about, and that is another look, and I know it's another look, at the old birth certificate, or what's really called a certified copy of an entry. Now, I've spoken about this many times, and other people have talked about how the birth certificate is a representation, apparently, of you, but it isn't you. And in fact, it's there for a government purpose as a legal entity or a legal representation, if you like, of you, or is it? And even though you can look at the birth certificate and you can see at the bottom, if you've ever done that, that it says that this certificate is not to be used as proof of evidence of identity, which makes you think, well, if it's not there to be used as proof of identity, then why do we need to take it to the bank or to the passport office to get those documents that we need in order to either have a bank account or to pass the port, basically, to go abroad? And I was looking on online, and a video popped up which put this over in a completely different way, or added some questions to the birth certificate, because I know a lot of people are a bit suspicious and they think, well, but you know that, but it is me. They are confused by it all. And I've put them in my community tab on YouTube, so you may be interested to have a look at that. But I just want to paraphrase what came up, because I think it was a fascinating idea that I had not considered and I hadn't seen anywhere else. In 1933 in Britain, the birth certificate is suddenly announced and everybody has one. And so you've got one, no doubt, and your parents have got one, and probably even your grandparents. But your great-grandparents would not have had one. Anyone born prior to the sort of 1930s would not have had a certificate of birth or any piece of document like that, because their records would have been kept in, as they did prior to all of this nonsense, in the parish records. And people would have made a note of their offspring in their Bibles. and places like that. The community would have known exactly who you are and could have identified you because your communities were much smaller. People didn't travel around quite so much. And so you might be identified as John the blacksmith or Peter the I don't know, the carpenter, you know, these sort of things. The people around you would know who you were, and life would have been much simpler. And then in 1933, it was deemed that some form of legal representation of you needed to be put together. And of course, this, like most of these things, this was put together so that it was for your benefit. You know, it was a number of reasons. But actually, like all these things, it's not really for your benefit. It's much more for the state's benefit, that you now had a piece of paper that could identify you. But this is that, so that happened, and we know that happened, and we can argue whether the name on the birth certificate or the certified entry of a copy of a certified copy of an, you know, it's a mouthful, isn't it? Is what you can argue whether that's you or not you. That's fine, and of course I would argue it's not you. It's just a label that somebody somewhere else has decided is you. And you know, you could change your name without having to have deed poll and all this sort of stuff. However, here is the interesting thing that came up in the video that I think is worth considering, is that do you remember 2020? It's only 5 years ago. Come on, scratch your head. You remember something happened, didn't it, in 2020, that the whole world in lockstep did the same thing. Doors were locked, windows and hands were hard pressed peering out. People were not allowed out of their houses because the state, the government, decided that there was something out there that was rather nasty. You must remember that event. You must remember that we were told you couldn't come out. We were all locked down. Now, that just wasn't one country doing that. The whole world did that all at the same time. They didn't do variations of it. They all did pretty much the same thing. And then there was a remedy for it. Do you remember? Do you remember? You may have had some of that serum injected into you. You may regret doing that. You may not. It's entirely your own opinion, of course. You know, do what you like. But what's interesting at that point is the whole world did exactly the same thing. Not one country went, oh, look what they're doing. I think we'll wait and see what happens. And maybe instead of having that serum, we'll perhaps use, I don't know, something herbal remedies. Maybe there's other things. No, everybody used the same 3, 4, 5 sets of those vaccines. Everybody effectively was mandated to take exactly the same thing, which is a bit weird, isn't it? I think that's weird that a country might go, well, they're doing that, but would we do that? Because the way that our traditions and customs and our people, they may not want to do that. They may want to do something different. They may want to think, actually, you know, bunging something into your blood that's just been done at the speed of science is perhaps not such a good idea when we haven't had long distance tests to see whether pregnant women might suffer from it, or children giving it now in 10 years' time that might suffer from it. Everybody did the same. In 1933, when the birth certificate was issued, it seems that everybody, all the other countries in the world, bar perhaps one or two, did exactly the same at the same time in lockstep. Which, again, don't you think that is weird that everybody decided, oh, yes, we'll have this global record, this data that is kept so that we know every single person. Now, you imagine, again, one country might say, oh, we're going to do this. And another country and the people of that country might go, well, that's an interesting idea, but we might do it slightly differently. It's a good idea, perhaps, if they thought it was a good idea, but they might do it a bit differently. We'll keep it in this way, or we do it that way, or we'll watch it for 10 or 20 years and see whether the people like that or not. But no, everybody, it seems, according to the video that I watched, everybody did it all at the same, with the same architecture of record keeping, so that anybody in the world would have almost an identical type of certified copy of an entry, birth certificate, at the same time. Now that is weird, is it not? That's very strange that everybody did it at that point. And what was even more interesting, that the point the guy raised in this video, and I do urge you to watch it and then do your own due diligence or look these things up, is when any government puts out something that's going to be new, normally, apart from in the case of the vaccine, of course, normally something that is a huge sea change on how we've done things before, there's a debate. There's a public debate. People will go to their meeting rooms, they'll go to their libraries, they'll go to the village halls, they'll talk about it in the pub. Is this thing that the government wants us to do a good idea? There would be debates and societies and challenges, and perhaps people would stand up, well, could we not do it that way? Could we do it this way? And all this sort of stuff. I mean, there'd be trials, wouldn't there? There would have been trials somewhere to say, yeah, this is what we're doing. But apparently, this just came in pretty much overnight, that people, instead of having their identity known by the community, that it was kept, records were kept in the parish, in the area, and were in private church places. Now, the state in 1933 had these birth certificates, and every country did exactly the same, and there were no debates. There seems to be no evidence of people saying, well, we think this is a good idea, and people challenge it and saying, well, I'm not sure it is a good idea, because that's sort of a privacy issue. I'm not sure I want a piece of paper that identifies me. I'm not sure I want to be put into a state system. And I find that really fascinating. You may do too. You may think, well, perhaps it's got nothing to worry about. We're in this system. But a lot of people are beginning to realize that the system and the name, the legal entity, this dead entity, this nonsense that has been produced, which is called the birth certificate, where a piece of paper is supposedly there to identify you, and I don't know how that can possibly identify, especially when it says you cannot use this piece of paper to identify you, is an advantage. And a lot of people will want to get out of it. Now, the problem is that in order to get out of this system, you really have to reject everything that the state does for you, and which is a big problem for a lot of people. If you work for corporations, the corporation will want you to have this dead entity piece of paper and be identified as that. A bank account where you're using, of course, fiat currency, which is all made up, as we know now. It's not backed by anything. You need to be into that system. A pension, for example, you'll have to reject and throw away your pension. Now, this is why the lovely Julia and I are sort of exploring how we can take back responsibility for ourselves and not be in a system that is going to use UK legislation for dead entities, not for real people, but for dead entities. The judiciary system, the police system, the council system, all of these need you to be this name. But of course, if you're saying, well, that's not me, it's just not me, then they're a bit stuck. Of course, they have big sticks and they just ignore what you say and say, well, we think it's you, and that's it. But the more people that realise that this system that's been put in place from 1933, where a bit of paper is supposedly to absolutely cast iron identify you, which it can't possibly do because it says so on the document itself, the more people that realise that the old system would collapse, and once again the people of this land would be free, and your identity would be known by those people who actually know you. You wouldn't need digital IDs and all these other schemes which are being planned to enable the state to have so much control over what should be free people. Have a look at those videos if you get a chance. Thank you for watching this one, and I will talk to you soon.